There is a moment in every rich person's life, long before the money arrived, when something changed inside their head that had nothing to do with their bank account. This is the part almost no one tells you, because it is far less interesting than stories of lucky breaks and inherited fortunes. The truth is quieter, and far more available to you than any story of luck could ever be. Wealth begins as a way of thinking, long before it becomes a number in an account, and the mind that eventually becomes rich is built, deliberately, before the money ever proves it right. Understand this distinction clearly, because it changes everything about how you should be spending your time and attention right now. The poor mind waits for circumstances to change before it allows itself to think differently. It says, once I have more money, I will think like a wealthy person. But this order is backwards, and it guarantees the wealth never arrives, because the thinking was always meant to come first. The rich mind understands this instinctively. It does not wait for proof before it commits to a new way of seeing the world. It commits first, and the proof follows, sometimes slowly, sometimes for years, but it follows only because the thinking led the way. Napoleon Hill spent decades interviewing the wealthiest men of his era, and what he discovered again and again was not a shared inheritance, not a shared education, not even a shared level of intelligence. It was a shared relationship with time, risk, and belief, three areas where the rich mind and the poor mind operate on entirely different operating systems, invisible to the outside observer, but decisive in shaping everything that eventually follows. Consider first the relationship with time. The poor mind evaluates decisions by asking what this gives me right now. It spends before it saves, consumes before it invests, chooses the comfort of today over the compounding of tomorrow, because the future has never felt real or certain enough to sacrifice for. The rich mind has trained itself to live in two time frames simultaneously, urgent enough to act today, patient enough to sacrifice today's comfort for a future large enough to justify it. This is why the rich mind will reinvest profit that could easily have been spent, will live below its means long after it could comfortably afford more, will endure years of invisible effort for a payoff that has not yet arrived. Nothing significant has ever been built in the time frame most people are willing to wait for, and the rich mind made peace with this truth long before it saw a single dollar of the reward. Consider next the relationship with risk. The poor mind treats failure as confirmation, proof that people like them are not meant for such things, proof that safety was the only sensible choice all along. This is why the poor mind clings to the guaranteed paycheck, the familiar, even when the familiar is quietly suffocating them, because the fear of failing again outweighs the possibility of a far greater future. The rich mind has inverted this relationship entirely. It treats failure as tuition, an expensive but necessary payment on the road to mastery. Andrew Carnegie did not build an empire avoiding risk. He built it by tolerating risk his contemporaries found unbearable, because he had already made peace with the worst outcome long before he needed to face it. Consider finally the relationship with belief itself, because this is where the deepest transformation must occur. The poor mind inherits a ceiling, usually without ever choosing it, passed down by well-meaning parents who inherited their own limits from their own upbringing. Absorbed through 1,000 small signals that wealth, significance, and extraordinary achievement happen to other kinds of people, not people like them. This belief is rarely spoken aloud. It simply operates quietly in the background, indistinguishable, to the person carrying it, from the way things simply are. The rich mind has, at some point, shattered this inherited ceiling, through a mentor, a book, an experience, sometimes a single sentence at exactly the right moment, and once exposed as an assumption rather than a law of nature, that ceiling could never fully reconstruct itself the same way again. This is why proximity to expanded thinking is not a luxury. You cannot become what you have never witnessed as possible, and the ceiling you have never seen broken will remain, in your own mind, indistinguishable from truth. There is a final, practical difference, hiding in plain sight, in the language each mind uses without even noticing. The poor mind says, "I can't afford that." The rich mind asks, "How can I afford this? What would need to change?" One statement closes a door and ends the search. The other keeps the door open and activates the exact creative faculty required to eventually walk through it. You must ask yourself, honestly, which mind has been governing your daily decisions. Not your bank account, your actual thinking, in the small moments no one is watching. Do you evaluate choices by their immediate comfort, or by what they compound into over years? Do you treat your past failures as permanent verdicts, or as tuition paid toward mastery? Have you mistaken an inherited ceiling for objective truth, simply because it was never questioned? Cross it today, in the smallest decision available to you right now. The money was never the line. the mind was always the line. And the money, when it eventually comes, will simply be what followed it.